Hi, team. Welcome to the Escape Podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. This week, we're going to talk about all of the news that came out of Star Wars Celebration and the Cantina event that went on this past weekend. We will also cover the latest Star Wars... All right, I'm going to start that over because I didn't update it in the notes. Hi, team. See, we're doing it live. This week we're going to talk about... okay, I'm just going to say, and we'll also cover the latest SWTOR news. Okay. Hi, team. Welcome to the Escape Podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. This week, we're going to talk about all the news that came out of Star Wars Celebration and the Cantina event that was going on this past weekend. We'll also cover the fun stuff going on in our guild, Alea Iacta Est. And as usual, we have an astromech standing by to record and broadcast this show. How's it going, EPC 87? And what are you doing with that soccer ball? No, get off that. You're gonna there you go. Nice crash there. Nice try, EPC BB 87. Yeah, get in the escape pod. Hi, Seema. How's it going? And are you sitting on a soccer ball right now?
One talented little astromech has aspirations.
And next week will be EPC 88. Maybe it's a distant cousin of BB-88.
BB-88, yeah. Well, things are going really good. I mean, I'll start with ops. On our first ops night, we did Temple of Sacrifice on story mode. Then we went back in hard mode and did Malifar, which was awesome. And then on Sunday, we did a symmetrical thing. We went into Ravagers on story mode, finished that, and then we did hard mode Sparky, and we got him down as well. So I was really happy about that, especially Sparky, because with Malifar, we had a strat that was working, and we just needed to, execute it. But with Sparky, to me, it was kind of a mystery. I didn't understand really how we were going to get that because of the stacks that come from the ads is making it really hard to keep the tanks up.
Mm-hmm.
First we tried it with no tank swap, but the stacks that come from Sparky himself or herself, Sparky or her?
Well, she's got a bunch of puppies, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
They weren't dropping, so we had to put in a tank swap, and that meant that a tank who had been tanking the ads and had the stacks from the ads had to swap in, and then he was like getting the stacks from Sparky and already had the stacks from the ads. So, but somehow Brew and Haruk who were tanking for us that night, and Makia who was raid leading, they figured out a way to balance it and so that it worked. And the DPS was killing all the things, and Sparky went down. It was a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
I was real happy about it.
Yeah, I thought we had gotten Sparky down. We did kill Sparky on hard mode before.
Yes, we had,
at least once. But I thought we had done it without a tank swap, and we definitely needed a tank swap this time. We were getting bad things happening without
Brew
it,
was
so.
saying that you used to be able to drop those stacks of deliciousness or whatever it is that Sparky puts on the tank during Rampage, which is this section where Sparky just runs all over the arena and pounces on different people, but her attention is away from the tank during that. I thought it used to be that the tank stack, those stacks would drop off during that time, but they definitely were not.
Right.
So that's why we had. And I want to give a big thank you to Niero, or at Niero_RFD, for suggesting on Twitter that I look at the Samsung 850 EVO solid state drive when I was talking about how I couldn't load the PTS because I didn't have room on my solid state drive where I have SWTOR. And I went and looked at it, and I really liked it, and I actually bought one, and I put it in my computer, and because of the way my case is, everything worked perfectly fine. And I actually looked on SWTOR.com to see the best way to copy my game over to the new drive, and there was a customer support guy that had posted in there that all you have to do is just copy the folder over, just drag it over, and then run the launcher, and it'll update all the everything, and it'll discover where everything is from that point. So
yeah,
I actually did that I copied it over and I deleted the other ones and I ran the launcher and it found itself and I was it was awesome. So now I have plenty of room for the PTR, which I will download soon because it's up now.
Yeah, that tends to work pretty well, the copy. I've used that a few different times.
Y- Yeah, I mean, yeah, I I just don't have faith in just copying it because I figure maybe there's something in the registry or maybe there's, oh, of course the shortcut doesn't work anymore, but you just make a new shortcut. But I
Yeah,
was really happy about that.
that's because that's because you learned computing in the old days like I did, where
Yeah,
with the registry and everything, there was no way, and shared DLLs and all that kind of stuff. There was no way you could just copy a thing. So
right,
it's
right,
craziness.
because something would break somewhere. But yeah, so I was real happy about that, and it was seemed like a really good deal, and it's working like a champ. And yeah, so thank you, Nero. But anyway, that's sort of the news with me. How's your week going?
Pretty good. So yeah, I'm counting us in our operations nights now as story mode +1 on both. So, and I think this is what we're going
That's
to do
right.
now. We're going to do Temple Sacrifice and plus 1. So we'll do Malifar hard mode. Then we'll do Ravagers +1 and dot dot dot. So I think what we're going to do,
Right.
because we finished up short this week, one of our Canadians was down for the count, was not feeling well, so we finished up a little bit early to give him give him a rest. Poor Apple. But I know that we're going to get to Bulo next week without at least be able to start working on Bulo, so that'll be interesting. So that was fun. I did get, as you see if you're watching the podcast, you see our fancy pink speeders. I did get one of those, and boy, they proliferated around the internet quite quickly, didn't they? After
They
the
sure
Cantina
did.
event. So there was a few different places that they were popping up. I did see a big thread on Reddit where people were just posting them into the Reddit discussion, and somebody actually made a tool where you could post a code and it would keep cycling the codes through if you wanted to get a code and you want to submit a code, and then if you marked a code as used up, it would stop using it. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we have a thread in our forums that people have been passing codes around. And then I wanted to give a shout out to Chinook, who is also Andreas SCH on Twitter, who did a really cool thing, and without even me asking that morning, DM'd me a code in Twitter right away and said, "Hey, if you don't have one, here's one." I had already gotten one elsewhere by that point, but I said that was very cool. That was nice of him. So
It is cool.
I also did. So I didn't do a ton else this week. We did our Tuesday stuff, which was pretty cool. So 2 weeks ago we did Dread Fortress. This week we did Dread Palace. We only had about 11 people, and we had a couple people that had never been in there before. So we only did story mode Dread Palace, and we cleared it.
16 men, right?
Yeah, 60-man story mode Dread Palace with about 11 people, 12 people. And we cleared it all except for the last fight. So we got up to that. I think we wiped twice before before we ran out of time. Most of the time was spent in there doing explanations of each of the fights. I tried to crack
Yeah.
them out pretty quick, but I like to tell a little bit of the story of what's going on with each of the fights, and I like to explain the mechanics so people can actually know what's going on when they get into the fight. But we one shot everything else, so the my explanations had to be okay. I guess I've come
Are you
along.
kidding? They were right on, man, right on.
I've
Plus, I
come
like the story part.
I've come a long way from. I think there's a thing and a thing. I don't know. Just kill all the things. Just kill all the things.
Right. I forgot about those days.
That used to be my my boss strats. So that was awesome, and we had a fun time in there. We're gonna go back. I'll save that for Guild News. We're gonna do mandatory fun night again this week, of course. I also I missed GSF night because I missed most of GSF night. I think I flew one match, but I had to help my daughter with Visual Basic software development homework, which I have a lot of fun with, even if. And she likes, she's pretty independent minded type kid, but she will come to me for this, so I have fun doing it with her.
Cool.
And Then I spent a lot of the rest of the weekend just doing random things in game, a lot of crafting, a little bit of leveling on my commando. Then that I stopped immediately after I heard what was going on in the cantina. We'll talk about that news. And I watched a lot of the SWTOR celebration. I watched some of the videos, I watched some of the live stream, and it was pretty cool. So I did some of that. I showed my daughters some of the stuff going on in there, and we'll talk about that when we talk about what happened in the celebration, in the trailer, and that kind of stuff. So that was my week. And I think with that, we can get into the pre-news before we go into deep into the news.
Now, an Imperial News Network report.
Well, first off, in our pre-news, there is a Vectron WGF veteran speeder in the cartel market right now. It's going to be the first of the mounts to use the new Flourish command. And if you haven't rebound it, if you haven't rebound Control Z, I guess Control Z would be the Flourish default keybind.
Yeah, exactly. And we've tried it on a lot of mounts that don't have a flourish, and it doesn't work on anything else. But it does work on that one, so that is cool. Also,
so if you have 1,800 cartel coins to spend, you can go buy one.
Although, as we were noting, the flourish on this particular mount isn't all that dramatic. So I hope they make more interesting flourishes. This is just like a little minor animation, little bit of flames coming out the sides, a little puff of smoke.
Little animation.
Also, this week the PTS is up and has a couple updates on it. So there's some notes up on what they're doing. There's a couple updates that are in. There's one in particular that's interesting that people are going to want to check out, especially if you PvP. So it's a change to how Resolve works. So what Resolve is every time you get stunned in PvP, you get a little bar that's attributed to your character gets a counter that starts going up and adding up Resolve. So Resolve is then when your resolve caps, you become immune to stuns until your resolve ticks back down and goes back underneath that white bar goes away. What they've changed and is now that in addition to being immune to stuns when your resolve caps, you are now also not immune, but you get a slow instead of a root when you get rooted in PvP now as well. So what the effect there is it's a little bit of a bonus to people who are getting immobilized a lot and stunned a lot in PvP. So a lot of classes like Marauders or melee classes that rely on being able to have at least some mobility to go and chase their targets and try to close gaps and things like that, as well as people that are trying to escape, now have this little bit of ability. So it's a little bit of a change. It's going to change the dynamic a little bit of how stuns and slows and roots all work around Resolve and PvP. So people are going to have to feel that out. But I thought that was interesting. There's also a couple notes up there. The PTS is up and it's ready. You can go check it out. There are a couple notes up on coming changes that are not yet on the PTS that I thought were interesting. They've started a thread where they're asking people for feedback. Hey, here's some changes that we're going to be making. What do you guys think of this? One is Sorks and Sages are going to have a change where Consumption or Noble Sacrifice is going to take 10% of your health and give you back a bigger amount of force and then have a cooldown. So right now you can spam it a whole bunch. Now it's a bigger thing that it pops all at once, but then has a cooldown, so you don't sit there and spam it. And they said that that's
it's not so much that you
spam
it, but that you can use it any time.
Right, but it does take. You can use it any time without a cooldown, but you have to use it a lot if you actually want to get a significant amount of force back. Now you'll be able to pop it once and get a big chunk of force back, but the cooldown is what.
Yeah, I mean, right now what you can do and what Healing Sages do is they just hit it all the time. It's just kind of part of the rotation in a way. You won't be able to do that.
Right.
So you don't typically spam it.
I thought there was a penalty to force regen when you used it.
Well, if you use it outside of having the proc, but the proc is up a lot.
Got it.
So you wouldn't hit it if you didn't have the proc, but it's sort of early and often is if you were having to manage regen at all. I mean, part of what they're trying to address is that Sorks and Sages healing anyway, and I think it might be true for DPS as well, not having to manage resources at all really right now. But this seems like a big change. Well, they were proposing a 3-minute cooldown. So that actually turns it into a different thing. Like you would only use it during a situation where you needed burst healing instead of it being more of a force management thing.
Excellent. There's also so with that idea, so there's interesting discussion around that. There's 2 others that are listed in the dev tracker if you want to go look at them. Mercs and Commandos have a change to rapid scan versus healing scan that they're doing something a little different with. I think there's one up there for Marauders and Sentinels where they're saying we're going to try to make the dot spec a little more bursty, but this will reduce damage slightly, so give us some discussion on where you'd like to see the damage be increased elsewhere in the discipline so that you get that burstiness on your dots. So there's interesting discussion going on there. I think that's something that people can definitely keep an eye on and continue to check out the PTS.
And just in some continuing reminders, 3.2 is coming on the 28th of this month. And then May the 4th, everyone gets an astromech, the M4S1 astromech.
Yes.
And something else coming on May the 4th, but we'll talk about that in this segment.
Yes, we will. Guild news this week. In our guild, I did want to highlight again, we've got that graphical view of our weekly guild calendar. It's posted on the main guild site at aie-guild.org. It's also linked in our forums. It just shows the fun stuff going on throughout the week, like our Saturday GSF and our Tuesday mandatory fun nights. So check those out. Mandatory fun night this week is going to be Explosive Conflict for the Republic side. We're going to go back in there and continue to try to get mounts and stuff like that in Explosive Conflict. We'll fly some GSF hopefully again on Saturday if people are around and paying attention and not watching hockey, Sten. We did have news postings going up all over the place for the Amazing Race Jedi Covenant edition that will be open to the server, so you can see those on Reddit and you can see them on Facebook and Google+. More news will be coming out about that as that develops. And as always, our streaming continues for things like Ops Nights and Mandatory Fun Night, twitch.tv/newoverlords, and that's where this podcast streams on Monday nights around 10:30-ish. So check those out, and I'm going to start to try to do a thing, so I wanted to say, I'll do it at the end of the podcast, but if you do join the chat room during the podcast, be sure to say hi. I see Shadow Khan in the chat room and DP Roberts. I thought I saw a couple people earlier, so say hi so I get your name, and I'm going to try to do a little, at least some little giveaway each week, because I do appreciate people jumping in the chat room and saying hi and contributing. But with that, I think we can get into the big stuff that happened, the future that we see.
Through the Force, things you will see, other places, the future, the past, old friends long gone.
So I think first we're going to talk about Cantina, but the thing I liked about that discussion from Yoda that we will certainly talk about is old friends long gone showing back up. And I think that was one of the most exciting things that happened this weekend with the trailer and the celebration event and the panels, seeing Mark Hamill and Han Solo, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. I thought that was really cool. But let's lead off with the Cantina event. I know, Seema, you watched the Cantina event, and we both checked out the notes. What are a couple of the things that jumped out at you as being... A lot of it was stuff we knew, but
right.
A couple interesting things popped up.
Yeah, so this live stream was, it covered a lot of stuff that was, like you said, stuff that we already knew. They did touch on a couple of things they hadn't mentioned before, which is the what they're calling the Epic Story XP boost, which is the return of 12X. They also talked about the Yavin 4 Stronghold, which we hadn't really heard about before. But yeah, we're gonna talk about those in a little bit of detail, right?
Yes.
We'll start with the 12X. They said that is actually set to start on May the 4th, so that's part of the Star Wars Day celebration. And they said it's going to go on for a long time. And I think their words were something like, so long they don't even know when it's going to stop.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know some people have read that to mean that it is going to stop at some point, but I don't know. Now I kind of think if they let it go on long enough, they probably won't ever turn it off because, yeah.
I'm surprised they made it just they're just going to turn it on and leave it on for pretty much forever or whatever. I would have expected it to be like a legacy perk or something like that.
I know. Yeah, me too. Although they also said a funny thing too in their Q&A where someone asked the question, what advice would you give to someone who was brand new to MMOs and was going to sit down and play SWTOR, and they said check out the Epic Story XP boost. So maybe they view the class story as a big pull or something, and so they're even telling a brand new person that, to skip all this other content. So I don't know. Maybe they do view it as a permanent thing.
Yeah.
But in any event, May the 4th, we're looking forward to that, and that would be why you stopped leveling this weekend during double XP, huh?
Yes, that is why I stopped. So I have a commando that's still low level. He's under 20 still. And my plan was with the double XP this week, I'm gonna, I'll spend some time. I want that commando up there. I don't know why I don't have one already, so that I can just take my mercenary gear and pass it back and forth. But yeah, as soon as I heard that 12X, I'm just gonna wait a couple weeks because I was spoiled. And we've talked about this with other people. I did get pretty spoiled with 12X XP, and even double, 2X XP just does not feel anything like 12X.
No, not really. Even double X and rested, because it just doesn't add up.
I do think it's important, and DP Roberts made this point in the chat room. I do think there's a lot of really good content on the planets, and especially for a new player or someone new to the game, playing those planet stories is pretty cool. There's some really cool storylines. I mean, I really like let's see, I think Terrace is okay. I like Terrace because I like Rackles. A lot of people don't like Terrace, and they got bogged down by Terrace. I like Ord Mantell. I like Belsavis is okay. What's the early one where Darth Lacris is running the planet?
Is that Balmora?
Balmora, yeah. So I really like Balmora and Darth Lacris and the things going Arms Factory and the stuff you get to in the end with the Republic commander that you're battling against. That's a great story. I would hope nobody would miss that.
And I think people too who are coming here because they're interested in the movies would want to play through Hoth and Tatooine for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are certainly iconic planets. You do get to go to every planet with your class story.
Right.
But you don't get the actual planet story without actually playing the planet. So that's interesting. They also talked about a little bit more about Ziost, or nothing much more than we knew. There was a little bit of Q&A about Ziost where people were asking, we saw some stuff in Ziost that looks like it's not added in yet, it's not open yet, what's up with that? And they were pretty cagey about it, but they basically said the 3.2 patch is not the end of everything. They're going to continue to develop 3.2 after the 28th, the release on the 28th. So I think they are going to open up a little bit more. It sounds like they're going to open up a little bit more Ziost, and maybe they're going to add to that a little bit. Even if you resolve the bulk of the story, there's more that can potentially happen, is what it sounds like to me. Is that what you got out of that?
Right. Yeah, what I got out of it is if you play through the story on the PTS, you still won't get the whole story because they have held. I thought it was that they had held some back, but maybe held some back from the PTS so that people could enjoy it on live and not get spoilers. But maybe what you're saying is what they meant is that it'll be released a little bit later. But yeah, whatever it is on the PTS right now is not the whole story.
Exactly. Let's see, what else?
Well, the stronghold on Yavin 4 is looking like it's going to be pretty sick. I mean, it's the pictures that are on the thumb drive look pretty epic.
Yeah.
The jungles and the waterfalls and they did mention too that they are planning for it to have more hooks than the current strongholds have. I don't know how I feel about that actually.
That's a lot to fill up. Well, more hooks, but the same amount to get to 100% wouldn't be bad. So if
That's
it's
right.
just more flexibility in the number of hooks that you have available to you to put stuff, I actually would like that. I wish there were more hooks in a couple areas, like how I did that garden decoration in my Tatooine stronghold on the balcony. I wish there were some more hooks, or that it was a little denser in the number of hooks available to do a couple things I wanted to do there. So that's cool.
Right. Well, they did make some comments about about people finding that there's areas where it's kind of dead space where there could be a hook or where they're not quite lined up the way people would like them. They didn't say they were going to change them, I don't think, in the current strongholds, but maybe the way the hooks are in the Yavin 4 stronghold will be more rewarding to people who are trying to get their things placed just so.
I know there's some back and forth on is Yavin 4 what we want? Is that the place that you would have picked to have a stronghold next? I would have picked either Rishi or Yavin 4 probably if I was going to pick a place. I probably would have picked Rishi. I like Rishi a little bit better. In fact, I was thinking of Rishi when I envisioned Yavin 4. But I really like Yavin 4. I think they did a good job with the art and the feel of it, and the jungle look and the waterfalls is a good match, a good extension to what the current looks of the strongholds are. So I'm good with it. What about you, Seema?
Well, I mean, when Yavin 4 first came out, that one of the comments that we heard from a bunch of different people was that, yes, you go there and it's just a daily area, and it could be so much more. So maybe this will sort of answer part of that, is you can go and spend your time in your stronghold on Yavin 4 and be more into Yavin 4.
Right, and just exit your stronghold and do some dailies and pop back into your stronghold. I guess there's that too.
Yeah, very true.
Go and
that's true, because it's not all that convenient to
right outside your stronghold.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a good point. I hadn't thought about that. It's going to be very convenient because, like, when I'm in my Nar Shaddaa stronghold, I rarely use the option of exit to Nar Shaddaa.
Right.
But exit to Yavin 4 is going to be very convenient.
That will be, for a number of reasons, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's see. There was this little thing called a mount code giveaway at the Cantina, which, boy, that little viral effect. I think I would say my summary there is well played. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect system. The website was a little bit glitchy in trying to get the code entered and get your code back out. But I sort of thought it was, that my summary is that I thought it was pretty clever to let these proliferate like a virus. Everybody's basically going to get one, but you have to talk to people and go to forums and interact with the community members and trade things around and pay it forward. And I don't know. I thought it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it was certainly easy to get. Yeah, I don't know why they did it that way. I mean, why not just mail it to everyone? But then again, this is taking advantage of people being social, and it is an MMO, so there is that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, right. They could have just dumped one in everyone's mailbox. But
Which
this,
they've done before.
right. But this did get a bunch of people chatting it up on Reddit, a bunch of people in our forums, passing codes back and forth, people talking in game, people asking me on Twitter and getting in the streams and saying, do you have a code? Where's the code? Et cetera, et cetera. So if anyone does not have a code, check our forums, check Reddit, and just ask people in general. There's basically infinite number of codes that end up getting generated.
Right.
It shouldn't be hard for you to find a code to get the mount. The mount itself, well, I know you like it, right? I'm only so
Yeah.
on it.
I've been wanting a pink mount from day one.
And I don't mind the color even, purple, pink mount. That's fine. I don't care. I'll ride a pink mount, but it's a little weird boxy thing. It looks like an ocean liner from the side view or
Right.
something like
Or
the Titanic.
yes, yeah, it does. It is kind of a weird shape, but I that's kind of why I like it too.
Oh, okay.
And it's not. You don't have to write it until the day you die. I like it for a change. I've been riding my Lurgo speeder for a while now, so
Yeah. So good.
which I really like. Yeah.
Now the hope is, or the expectation is, now we know what to do with our expectations. Keep them low. The expectation is that every Cantina now from now on will have a different mount associated with it, and I'd expect it to be like a reskin of this. I don't know for sure that it's going to be different, but that's the expectation now, so everybody's keeping an eye out. I think the next Cantina event is going to be San Diego, and if it's a new code there for new mounts, then everybody's going to be passing them around again. I think that would be a good idea for them to do that. I don't think that's guaranteed, so that's going to be interesting.
Well, speaking of speeders, they did show a picture on the live stream of a new model for a speeder that is like a giant circle, and you're riding inside the circle, like a wheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that looked interesting.
No ETA on that one though.
So what else? They had a little bit of a Q&A. Was there anything that caught your eye out of the Q&A? So I guess to sum it up, there's certainly some criticism over the Cantina event, and I can go either way on this. So overall, I think people were somewhat disappointed that there wasn't more news, more, anyone who is interested in any particular aspect of the game felt underserved, especially if it was a point that they didn't mention at all, but everybody felt that they wanted more. PvE wanted more. PvP certainly felt like they're continuing to get screwed and not get any news on anything coming for them. Nothing about GSF. My initial viewpoint, I can certainly see that, and I can sympathize with that. And I did come around more to say, okay, yeah, I guess overall it was relatively lame. I didn't come into it though thinking that this was a press event where they were going to be making game announcements. So
Right.
with me coming into the expectation that I had been to a Cantina event, and Cantina events are more just a party and a social gathering for them to be able to hang out with fans. And sure, they talk a little bit about they talk a little bit in the beginning, but it's more like, hey, hi, I'm a dev. I have a fun job. Ask me some questions. I can't tell you about future stuff, but ask me fun questions, and we're gonna hang out. We're gonna have some drinks. So watching it from that perspective, I got what I expected, and it was fine. It was a little, it was a little self-promoting in some ways, and I think that's one of the comments you had, Seema. So what was your sort of summary view on the whole Cantina event idea?
Well, I'm like you. I wasn't looking for it to be a lot of new info, and I wasn't looking for it to, tell us what's going to be in 4.0 or 3.3 or anything like that. I do feel like they spend a little bit too much time and energy congratulating themselves. It has a kind of self-congratulate, aren't we awesome kind of a feel to it. instead of I don't even know what word I want to say, but instead of like here's what we have and here's how we arrived at this, it's more like, isn't this awesome? Don't you guys think this is awesome? And sort of begging the audience to clap.
Yeah.
I could do without that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's a party,
Yeah.
like you said.
Yeah.
It's I do think the questions, I mean, I don't know how they selected the questions, but the questions were very soft, and they were handled in a very soft way. So like someone would say, have you ever thought of having X in the game? And the answer would be, that's a really good idea. You know, let us know what you want in the game. That was almost the answer to every question.
Right.
And
Wookiees. Wouldn't Wookiees be great? Yeah, Wookiees would be great.
yeah, we love Wookiees.
We love
Wookiees
Wookiees.
are
You love
awesome.
Wookiees. Wookiees are cool. Okay. I mean, but you know, again, what would I expect them to say? They certainly can't commit to anything. But it was pretty soft in a lot of ways.
Well, they could they could give an answer with some information in it, like, yes, we have talked about Wookiees, and here are some of the difficulties that we would run into, and we're blah 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 blah. It's still on the list or whatever, instead of just, yeah, that's cool.
So DP Roberts in the chat room said that their comment on the question was that they were random, and I think they were selected for content and then randomized potentially. They could not have been random, because if they were random, there would have been at least 20% of the questions would have been about, why do you hate PvPers, and in any random sampling, and there would have been the inevitable, when are you going to stop sucking? If it was really random questions, we would have seen that. So they certainly picked and chose questions from actual players, or whoever was asking the questions, and then read them randomly and got to whatever they could get to. That's fine. So okay. So out of the Q&A, Seema, was there anything else that caught your eye that was interesting, or was something that was a good question?
I thought it was kind of interesting that their answer to someone said, is there any plan to make boss encounters that are less melee unfriendly? And they said to look for some improvements in 3.2 for that, and that they would be vigilant about that in the future. And then they said, we even make sure our dev teams beat the bosses with an all melee team.
Yes.
Which I'm glad they're giving that some attention.
I thought that was interesting.
But again, the way
You're
they
right.
answer things makes them seem like they never gave it any attention before. So I don't know.
We never thought of that. We never thought people might be playing melee classes. I mean, we don't. So.
Right. Right.
So.
But, I mean, that could be a good improvement.
The idea of, fine, we're going to make an all melee test team, and the all melee test team has to make sure that that they give us their feedback. I thought that was an interesting thing to talk about from a test perspective, at least. So yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah, and of course, all melee is going to have a different set of issues than part melee and part range, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's fun to listen to those guys. I appreciated Sean Charles, the host. He was very professional, and I guess he's from ESL.
Okay.
And he introduced all the people on the panel in the beginning, and he was also very positive, which is fine. I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't be positive, but at all. I'm not saying that at all, because actually I believe in being positive. But yeah, I thought he was good. I liked him, and I thought the whole thing went smoothly. And I'm glad that they did a live stream.
Yes.
I'm glad that we didn't have to watch it from camera phones and stuff like we have in the past. So I think that's a big step forward.
Yeah, it was high quality. We actually got to see a good live stream, and so there's that. So
And they showed the trailer for 3.2, which is being called The Rise of the Emperor, and we get to hear the voice of the Emperor, or the former emperor, as Lana calls him, because they don't like him anymore. So
Right.
he's not, he's not my emperor. I didn't vote for
I
him.
didn't vote for him.
And
But
you see some of the sixth liners, the
Six Line Jedis.
military Jedis,
Yep,
and Theron Shan is in there too.
of course he is.
So yeah, I mean, we can't have Lana without Theron. And
No.
yeah,
Given his awesome advice, like, I'm not going to be able to help you out much more because my radio's going bad. So whatever, go fight the Underlurker without me. Thanks, man, because you've been a huge help so far. So
oh, we haven't really touched on the travel improvements, although we did cover them in a previous show. But
yeah,
they did say, and I thought this was pretty interesting, that feedback after the last time they had 12X is what made them decide that they wanted to make the FPs, the flight, the speeder, the taxi points open as soon as you land on a planet.
yeah,
Because it was basically the Planet Quest lines that were opening all the taxis.
Right.
So if you're just doing a class story, you're having to ride to all the flashbacks with it. So they fixed that.
and that is a good point. And a lot of people have sort of made the point that 12X XP plus fast travel options are really going to be a nice combo bonus.
Yeah, the zero cooldown quick travel is going to be awesome. I don't know any other game that has anything comparable to how travel works in SWTOR, really.
A lot of games have really railed against any sort of fast travel, saying, "Oh, it's going to really break immersion." And I know I think I even said this last week. I don't think it does break immersion in SWTOR. I think the idea of spaceships zooming people around and back and forth and dropping me off where I want to be dropped off makes a ton of sense. And I don't get immersion broken by travel. I actually get immersion broken by slow travel more than I get immersion broken by fast travel. When I gotta,
right, and because
I'll walk away and make a sandwich if I gotta get on
Right.
some sort of long travel in some MMO.
right, which is like immersion gone.
Yeah,
I'm in the kitchen now.
yeah. All right, so
My kitchen on Earth.
so that's it with the Cantina event. Let's talk a little bit about Star Wars Celebration. I wasn't glued to it, but I did watch a bunch of what was going on. And I caught up afterwards, and I looked at a couple of the best ofs. There were a couple major components of Star Wars Celebration that I thought were pretty interesting. Overall, I thought that the hype around Star Wars Celebration and the trailer and just the idea that people in the general population were aware of this thing, that there was this conference going on, this con, and that I think the trailer had a lot to do with just the idea of SWTOR or Star Wars being in the news. The hype and the interest around Star Wars just in general in the mainstream right now is immense, and I've never experienced any sort of geek culture, what would have been geek culture, being so mainstream. It's just been an amazing transition in my mind from to take this thing that was, it was great movies back in the day, but to have it be so mainstream and all of the culture and idea of Star Wars be so mainstream is just pretty amazing to me. So that said, the trailer, number one. So the trailer came out. I watched the trailer. I thought the trailer was pretty good. I wasn't
I liked it.
blown away by the trailer the first time I saw it, but now having seen it a couple times and hearing other people get really excited about it, it's gotten me more excited about it.
Yeah.
And the thing that really turned me around completely on the trailer. So, it's a little bit of spoiler here. If people haven't seen the trailer, go watch the trailer and then, come back and listen. But when you get to the end and there's Han Solo and Chewie and they say we're home, they're obviously like in the Millennium Falcon, likely. And the first time I saw it, I was a little bit like, what if it's like a little bit of a, Dorothy Wizard of Oz moment there, and I wasn't. I in my head, I bashed it a little bit. I'm like, it was fine, and it was good to see Han Solo.
You're hard to impress, Max.
I'm usually not. I'm usually very easy to amuse, and I never hate anything. So there's that. The thing that turned me around on it is my 16-year-old daughter, who is not a geek. She's mainstream. She's a jock. She's smart. She's into school and sports, and she watched the trailer, and it got to the end. She watched the trailer. She's like, "Oh, this is cool. It's cool. There's a Star Destroyer." She thought that was cool. It got to the end, and she saw Han Solo, and she's like, "Oh, hey, it's they're gonna be in the movie." And she got all excited. And I think this is what mainstream people are getting. They're just now, we all knew that Han Solo was gonna be in the movie, Mark Hamill's in the movie, Carrie Fisher's around, so Chewbacca's in the movie. We all knew that. It wasn't a surprise. I knew he was in it. Mainstream, I don't think, has been keeping up on who all of the cast members are and how much screen time they're gonna have, like we geeks have. So she got really excited, and it made me realize that that is a big deal, and that's gonna be a big important part of the movie. So having Luke in there in the trailer, having Han Solo in the trailer, I'm turned around now. I think it's cool, and the new characters, which I like too. So what do you think? What do you think of the trailer, and what do you think of the old friends and long gone coming back?
Well, I'm a fan of movies in general, but I generally do not go to the theater. I like to watch them in my own home, so I'm like Netflix or however.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to this movie a lot because Star Wars, of course. But the hype is getting me hyped. I mean, it's working on me. I want to see it like now.
Yeah, it is. It is working. So the trailer was one thing that definitely worked and got me hyped. So you know what else I have in the notes that I wanted to talk about. What would you say would be the next thing that got you the most hyped, or you thought was the most amazing about Star Wars Celebration?
Oh, well, for me, I enjoyed the most was watching the little BB-8
Yes.
robot.
I was gonna say it, but I thought I'd let you pick the next one too. Same thing. Boy,
I just thought that was awesome.
Somebody is a wizard. Somebody is a techno mage that put that little thing together. I was a little, so here's one where I went back and forth a little bit too. I think it's the most amazing piece of prop tech and robot tech that I've seen in a long time, and I really like it. I was a little surprised that they bothered to do it for the movie, because I'm sure they could have spent at least one, if not two orders of magnitude less cost in doing it in CGI. However, and you showed me this, Seema, you were the one who showed me it first. Over the weekend, go back, watch the J.J. Abrams panel where he describes why he did that and why they went as far as they did with practical effects. So a lot of what they film in the movie, in fact, he tried to make a majority of what they were doing with the movie all practical effects. So puppets and props and actual things that they hold and people dressed up and the robot as an example. And he had a really good description. So what was it that he was saying?
Well, he was saying that it's better for the actors and better for the movie when they're actually reacting to each other and to the things in the set, and not to like an empty spot that's going to be filled with animation later. Yeah. And I can buy that.
Yeah, I liked his description. He explained it well. I think that is pretty cool. I was still, even there, I don't know why I got so cynical over all of this. Even there, I was a little cynical on it. I was saying, there have been great movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, where 90% of it was filmed with them all standing around wearing green suits, standing in front of green screens, and they all acted perfectly and reacted well to Rocket and Groot, and that all worked
It's not
really
like
well.
It can't be done, in other words. Yeah,
it's not,
I agree.
It's not like, so...
But let's take that example. They couldn't, if they could have gotten a real alien, that would have been better.
If they could have trained a raccoon.
Yes, exactly.
And dressed him up with a big gun, But boy, that robot having it come out on stage during that panel, and just watch it. So it's controlled. They said it's controlled by a puppeteer, but it's fully so, and that's just the remote controls. But you can notice that you know that it's controlled by a puppeteer because the thing's got personality when it comes out on stage, and that's the puppeteer doing that job. It's just incredible. It's incredible, the technology, and then it's incredible the personality that the puppeteers are able to give it, because it can like tip its head back and look up, and it can look around, and it did circles around R2D2 during that panel, looking at R2D2 and beeping at him, and you know it's like the new hotness when he's like, when he's like coming up to R2D2 and walking a circle around him and looking at him and making his little sounds and looking around and looking up. That thing really stole the show. That's an amazing piece of technology. So there's me gushing over BB-8. I want to make one now.
Yeah, absolutely.
We speculated on how it's done, and we're sure it's magnets, but of course no one knows how magnets work. So. Magnets, how do they work?
Well, I also wish that, I think this would be a good time for all the Star Wars movies to be available on Amazon Prime or Netflix or something. Because, leading up to this movie, I would like to watch all of them again.
Well, you're leading. That's a leading statement, right? Because this past week they were released in digital format.
What does that mean?
You didn't know that? You can now purchase all of the original Star Wars movies as digital content. So you can go to
purchase them.
Well, yeah, I know you're hoping that you can stream them off of Netflix. But this was big news in the past 2 weeks. It was about a week and a half ago. They were all through multiple channels, but you can now purchase a digital copy of all of the 6 original movies for the first time. The digital copies like that were never available before. So we can at least get them as digital copies and have a little movie night, I guess. I think I'm going to do that with my daughters.
I might do that. I'm never buying another DVD, I don't think.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, there's a couple must-owns that I do go out and buy the Blu-ray. I barely have any because, yes, streaming. Why? And why do I need to own another thing? I need everything just to be virtual, so that when I become when I become a kung fu master and walk the earth, I need to travel light, right? So I need to get rid of all my worldly possessions, but I need to turn them all to digital format because I still want to be in Tibet and watch Star Wars Episode 7. So there's that.
Yeah, and to buy the digital movie collection is like $90 or whatever.
Right.
I would pay $4 or $5 for each movie to rent it. Yes. Digitally.
Yes. Yeah. So
Easily.
Hopefully those will be available like that before long as well. All right. Well, we're going a little bit long. I would recommend anyone that missed the Star Wars Celebration stuff. The cosplay, I think, was incredible and amazing. Just the magnitude of cosplay there.
Yeah, the sheer volume.
There's hundreds. There was like 30 Princess Leia's in the metal bikini, including one dude who actually looked pretty good. There was like 100 R2D2s. There was a couple hundred stormtroopers. There was a couple hundred bounty hunters. There was a couple hundred imperial generals. Just hundreds of everything done perfectly. A couple hundred Jedi. So go check that out. Check out those pictures. That was good. There wasn't a ton of SWTOR in the general mainstream news around Star Wars Celebration, but Battlefront got a lot of airplay. So that was interesting. I would recommend people go take a look at that because that got hyped up and was pretty cool. And I think just in general, the hype, go look at what happened to the stock market and Disney's stock the day the trailer came out. Talk about hype. I think valuation went up something like $2 billion for Disney the day that the trailer came out just because of the hype. It's back down a little bit now from what I understand, but I think this is just good for Star Wars in general, and I think it's going to be good for SWTOR this year. Just it being as interesting and hyped up and interesting looking and coming out good looking the way it is, that I'm pretty jazzed about it.
When I went to to review the Star Wars trailer on YouTube, to watch it again, it was posted by Star Wars, and they said in the first 24 hours that had been posted, that it had garnered 88 million views around the world.
Unbelievable. So yeah, go check it out.
It's
amazing. So with that, I think we can wrap it up for this week. Thanks for listening or watching, and thanks again to the chat room. Feel free to join the chat room again next Monday night on twitch.tv/newoverlords around 10:30 Central. And I will be trying to do at least a little bit of a giveaway to the people that show up in the chat room on Monday nights from here on out. For comments or questions, you can also follow us on Twitter @MaxTheGray and @AIESEMA, or find us on Jedi Covenant and ask for an AIE Guild invite. We would love to have you. And we will talk to you soon.
See you later.